First and foremost is our moderator, Daniela Malki, manager at Cybertech Tel Aviv. Please applaud. We like clapping here. Hi, Daniela. Next one up is Nicolas Arpaijan. Am I saying it right? How do you pronounce it?
Perfect, as you did.
Arpaijan. I got it right. Nicolas is Director of Strategy and Public Affairs at Orange. Welcome. Next one up is Lior Kalev. Lior, where are you? That's the spirit. Lior is Director and Head of Cyber Risk Management at Deloitte, Israel. I would like to invite my friend Ofer Binun. He's the co-founder and CEO at Argus Cybersecurity, a hot startup in the cyberland of Israel. Where's Ofer's applaud? I'm going to have to... Okay. Yes, he deserves it. Miguel Arias Bermudez, please come up. He's a Global Entrepreneurship Director at Telefonica. And the last one, after you've all warmed up, I want to hear a big round of applause for Roy Yarom, Head of Policy Planning at the Israeli National Cyber Bureau. You did better before, but I'll let it slide. Thank you. Have a good panel.
Thank you very much. So I believe you heard we have 5 very special guests here, very special speakers. They will share with us their perspective on cybersecurity on different fronts. That's the name of the session. And I will ask to start by introducing yourself and the company you work for and you represent here today. Please.
Hello, thank you very much for this invitation and opportunity to talk to you about Orange Cyber Defense, which is the entity of the Orange Group, telecommunications operator, fully dedicated to cybersecurity. We are a bit more than 1,200 people, fully concentrated on the customers of Orange, on the question of cybersecurity. And obviously, we do the full range, coming from the audit, consulting, to the supervision networks and devices to protect them, and obviously to help them in case of crisis, when it's time to intervene, to remediate, and to see how we can cope with the number of attacks. Concerning, yes, when you said what the question concerning how we are concerned by the subject, obviously we are concerned, first of all, because we are a transnational firm. So we have a worldwide network where we can see physically the attack, the amount of the attack, the variety of the attack, and the fact that it is a real threat. This is a global one, and this is changing very fast. Second point is that we are sure that our activity has an impact, and the fact that if we are in trouble, a lot of businesses, a lot of administrations, a lot of individuals will be in trouble. So we are very concerned by the fact to have this capacity, to have this continuity of activity. And so that's why we have to invest on knowledge about cyber attacks, how the cyber threats can be analyzed, and how we can fight against it, and then react to limit the impact of the attack. And the fact is that in a large number of countries, there is legislations that designate us as operator of vital interest or essentials activities. The question of telecommunication is critical. So we know that it can have a much larger impact if we have difficulties. So that's why we are well placed and well engaged on that question, and we are determined to continue to invest on the fact to understand it, then to deploy on the shortest period the capacity to limit the impact of a cyber attack, which are amazingly creative and opportunist when they want to target, especially a company and administrations, or even individuals when they are in the every digital day life.
Lior, a little bit about yourself and the company you represent.
So my name is Lior Kalev. I'm leading Deloitte cyber activity here in Israel. I'm sure you all know that Deloitte is one of the biggest consultant firm globally, and one of the biggest cyber consulting globally, doing a lot of activity from strategy and risk assessment, and even dealing with this guy's area of automotive security, medical device, and other. Almost 5,000 consultants worldwide. In Israel, we are growing pretty fast in the last 6 months, I think. We need to grow to up to 200 people in Israel doing services to Israeli clients and to Deloitte global clients in many topics, specifically into the US market. If we're talking about concern, I think one of the biggest problems in the cyber market today, specifically in Israel, is people. People that don't want to go to work in cool startups, people that want to work in consulting firm, people that want to work in organization doing cyber defense, and people that understand cyber and business and know to speak in the risk language. I think it's something that, and I hope something that even the Israeli government is doing some efforts to close these gaps in the next few years.
We will talk about that later. Ofer, please.
Hello, my name is Ofer Benoon, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Argus Cybersecurity. Argus is focused on automotive cybersecurity only, so we are today the biggest automotive cybersecurity company in the world. Started 5 years ago, focused in helping car manufacturers and the technology providers to have a better design for the car, but also the right systems in the vehicle to make them secure today and also in the future. Based in Tel Aviv, all of the R&D is actually in Israel, with offices in Michigan, Silicon Valley, Stuttgart, and Tokyo. And we are very happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Wow, that was pretty impressive. So I'm Miguel Arias. I'm a former entrepreneur, mainly in the data analytics area. For the last 6 months, I'm getting used to the corporate life. I joined Telefonica as head of entrepreneurship. Well, what I try to do is to be the interface between all the efforts that Telefonica is doing to work with entrepreneurs globally. And Telefonica, as you probably know, is one of the biggest telcos in the world, 50 billion euros in revenue. And with a very strong bet around cybersecurity, we have over 2,000 team members working on it. And our business in cyber is growing 70% year over year. So we are growing rapidly. And just to point out something interesting, we develop our own products, but we also integrate many products and solutions from fellow startups. So cooperation, open innovation cooperation with startups is critical for our cybersecurity success. And I lead the WIDA project globally, which is our network of open innovation hubs. We have over 11 of those around the world, mostly where Telefonica is present in Latin America and in Europe. And our main goal through all these open innovation hubs is actually to drive revenues. So how can we help our fellow entrepreneurs to do more business, not for us, but with us? So that's our main KPI. Thank you.
And finally, Roy.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Roy Yarom from the Israeli National Cyber Directorate, previously known as the Bureau. I am head of policy planning for the strategy division in the INCD. Now, the INCD has a twofold mission, as articulated by the Israeli government. First and foremost, we are the lead agency in protecting the Israeli civilian sector in cybersecurity. But secondly, and this is the part which I represent, and mostly, we are tasked with keeping the Israeli position globally as steadfast, as strong as it is, building capacities, the national capacities in cybersecurity, manpower, academia, industrial base, international cooperation, and technology. And in this capacity, I am, as I said, head of policy planning. I deal mainly with promotion of industrial base and other ecosystem-related fields.
Thank you very much. So as you can see, we will have different fronts on cybersecurity, and I will start with Miguel. Miguel, as the person in charge of the relationship, the procedures, the collaboration between Telefonica and startups globally. So how do you see the cooperation between both?
Thank you. So I would say, there is so much more money now flooding into the industry that probably we cannot play a big role as investors. We are not the best looking company in the disco, right? There are all these other appropriate investors that will get much more interest. So our biggest value proposition for entrepreneurs is business generation. How we're able to do joint business, as I said before, right? And particularly in such a dynamic industry like the cybersecurity one. So how can we add the products of the startups into our pipeline, not just to resell it, but also to add some of our data, some of our specific technology, and create then joint products that we can add into our sales and partners channel. And we do that a lot. We do it in Telefonica with many cybersec startups like Devo, Countercraft, in many, many different areas. And they're really driving a lot of those revenues for us. And we also do another very interesting thing. In the UK, we run the GCHQ Accelerator, which is probably the sister agency to RCND, right? So that gives us a lot of exposure to the trends of the industry, to the best startups applying for the program, which we then can bring into our global scale. I mean, I think the best things that corporations have is access to 300 million of customers. So how can we open that door for the startups, right? So probably if that's what we can provide, and maybe it's useful for you to know what we look for in entrepreneurs, right? And what we're looking for is we cannot, as big corporation, work with entrepreneurs which are just in the starting phase. I mean, if you are still on ideation phase or initial product market fit, it's probably too early for us. We had a very bad first customer for a startup. We usually kill the startup at the beginning. So you need to be a bit more mature, have at least some customers, some proven model that we can then bring really in another scale, in another size, right? So I think that's the key point, that you already have a proven model, we can then help grow a lot. And the other one is having an international mindset, that there's a strong team that already gets how to work with enterprises, so that then we can boost that. So I would say international mindset and proven product, and then we are very happy to bring you to the moon.
Hope there are some entrepreneurs here who can
Happy
some
to.
insights from Telefonica. Now, Lior, you also have a lot of experience working with the startups and also with multinationals who open here innovation centers. Tell us a little bit about the can-do and do not do about the collaboration between the multinationals and startups.
Okay. Part of what we do in Deloitte, we are helping our global clients come to Israel, understand what's happened here, and see how they collaborate with Israeli cyber technologies, specific in mine domains, but we're doing it in many other domains. And by the years, we understand that in order to help big organizations to understand what's happening in Israel, we need to build a clear process that you can see a lot of companies coming to Israel doing cyber tourism, seeing a lot of startups saying, wow, it's cool, Israel, it's an amazing place, going back home to the day-to-day work, and then nothing really happened. And the startups in Israel are waiting that someone will call them, and nothing happened at the end. So I think we succeed to create a process that we create commitment from both sides, from the startups and from the organization that come into Israel. We help them to create a clear strategy of what they want to do in Israel. What will be the mission of the center or the R&D center, the innovation center, even scouting activity they want to do here in Israel. The process, some organizations are coming to Israel, will do cyber, will do healthcare, will do automotive, will do many areas. The mission needs to be clear and focused. We really believe in start small, understand the market, understand the startups and the Israeli culture that sometimes it's very, very different from other cultures. And our mission is helping to cross some of those gaps. I think one more point for big organizations that open here centers. Sometimes the people here in Israel sitting in cool innovation centers, meeting startups all day, and the people in the engineering teams in the organization are disconnected from the activities here in Israel. I think one of the first steps we're doing with the client is make sure that every activity in Israel is part of the engineering team or cyber team in the organization. You don't have the doctors that are doing innovation and the people that are doing real defense. They are working together. The mission is clear for both sides. I think this is a key point for the success of this process. From the other side, the Israeli startups, sometimes we're bringing even mature startups that did some project, mainly in Israel. They're sitting with big giants from worldwide. And when they ask them, okay, how much time you think it will take you to do implementation in an organization like us? And the answer is, 2 weeks, everything is working, the machine is playing what it needs to do. No. Before entrepreneurs coming to meet big organization, you need to think, as you said before, think like big enterprise, not an Israeli big enterprise, but big organization. Understand the politics, understand the architecture, understand what is a global organization with a global challenge and a global process. It's not that you met your friend from the Israeli bank and in 2 minutes you say, let's do POC. Sometimes only to sign NDA can take 3 months. So it's creating the Israeli part some frustration, but this is how it works. Our mission in Deloitte is try to make it shorter. So I think this is part of what both sides need to think when they want to start, collaborate, open here some activities.
Thank you. Very good tips. Now we will go to Roy, the only representative of the government here in this prestigious panel. So, Roy, what can the government do in order to help the Israeli ecosystem stay ahead in the innovation curve? From the mata.
Yes. So, as I said before, we see great importance in keeping our industrial base innovative, competitive, and strong. Both because we would like to remain as technologically independent as possible on a national level, and both because we want to be able to reap the economical, political, social benefits of having a strong, innovative economy. The challenges here are both that the competition, although Israel has a very good starting point for many reasons, the competitive landscape is getting crowded. A lot of countries invest a lot of resources in staying ahead of the curve, as they say, and Israel has to keep pace. We cannot rest on the laurels, as one can say. Now, the challenges I see, I can see 3 or 4 points maybe. First of all, the human manpower pool, the scarcity of human manpower in cybersecurity is a global issue. The INCD has been doing several efforts in that field, organizing programs for all along the career life cycle of cybersecurity professionals, from junior high schools up until vocational training and academic training, but we need to scale up those efforts, okay? We are not keeping pace with the demand. And as Lior can attest all too well, the demand is ever growing, and we need to be able to produce more cybersecurity professionals and feed them into the market. Secondly, innovation. Israeli government is subsidizing innovation. It's been doing a very good job, actually, for the past 2 decades. We in cybersecurity, we try to focus. There's a lot of venture capital funds in Israel in cybersecurity. We try to focus on encouraging startups and Israeli industry to look for the next bleeding edge, cutting edge technologies which will make impact in 5-7 years time, maybe even 10. So we do not want to replace venture capitals. We want to invest our money in places where it's too risky even for a venture capital firm to enter, where there is no business model. We want to, a lot of our projects will fail, I suppose, but the few that will succeed can give Israel the advantage it needs, its competitive advantage, both from a defense perspective and an economic perspective in the years to come. Thirdly, and I heard it a few times across this panel, Israel has a lot of strengths in cybersecurity. What we lack is the part in the equation of open innovation, which is the global vendors. I mean, we don't have global automotive companies, manufacturers in Israel. We don't have global communication companies in Israel. Now, to face the challenges of the ever-changing threat landscape of cybersecurity, we need the operators, the regulators, the vendors, and the government operational agencies to work together in understanding the challenges and developing the next generation of solutions. So we have part of the equation, our industry has part of the equation. We need to be attractive enough for global players to come here to do and to set up their innovation labs or satellites. It has many names today. Deloitte and players such as Deloitte are also crucial actors. Our job is that as government is supposed to incentivize these schemes and models and to chip in our part as government. Unlike maybe in other sectors, the government has unique experience in cybersecurity. It has unique assets because of the Israeli Defense Forces and other defense apparatus, which has invested a lot over the years in cybersecurity and created very, let's say, strong and unique IP assets. We need to combine all of these to make Israel the best place to develop the next generation of solutions. I think that's it for now.
No doubt the government has an important role in making the Israeli ecosystem succeed. And speaking of successful stories, we have here Ofer from Argus. Argus was a startup acquired by Continental. You could, after that, elaborate. But for now, could you please share with us why do we need dedicated cybersecurity solutions for vehicles?
Sure. So first I would like to relate to the topic of people and the shortage in the industry. So first, it's felt everywhere, also at us. So we grew in the last 9 months, doubled, so from 60 to 120 people. And I can tell you that the secret of every startup is by far the people. Until the end of the year, we are recruiting another 40 people. 80% are engineers, 20% sales and marketing and other. And I can tell you that the only reason why we are still successful on that is because we stayed independent. So even though we were acquired by Continental 1 year ago, we are completely independent. Actually, most of our sales are to the competitors of Continental. So it's kind of safe as a corporate, but agile as a startup in the eyes of the employees, and that's a huge, huge benefit. I think we are quite unique in that approach. And that's what allows us really to solve the problem of automotive cybersecurity. And that problem is very different from the traditional challenge of IT cybersecurity, because in a sense, all of the protocols in the vehicle are completely different. So it's not about TCP/IP, but more about CAN and CAN-FD, which are the main two old protocols, and the upcoming protocols, which is automotive Ethernet, which is different than traditional Ethernet. But even the most important thing is the fact that the drivers or the customers are the ones that are owning the devices. So unlike in a situation of IT where the company owns the equipment, so if someone hacks tomorrow your laptop, then the CISO of Deloitte can say, hey, please shut down your laptop, I'll come to have forensics. In this case, we're talking about complete remote forensics. So if tomorrow Daimler's Mercedes vehicle is being hacked in Israel or in Michigan, we cannot just call the owner and say, hey, please shut down your vehicle, but all of the security has to be completely transparent, remote. All of the forensics and the resolution has to be remote. So the challenges are very different. And the last portion is that a vehicle is out there for about 10 years. So it means the solution that we decide on today, which will go into production in 3 years for today, still has to block attacks for another 10 years. So what we emphasize today, or what we imagine today, still has to be valid 13 years from today. No other industry, probably apart from, I don't know, electricity or airplanes, has that long of a sales cycle, and we're here talking about consumer market. So this is very, very different. The challenge is amazing, but it's also fun to resolve it.
We are glad you enjoy your job. Nicholas, so we spoke a lot about the challenge of having the right team, the right people. So tell us, what is your specificity as a telecom operator to be a strong player in cybersecurity?
Yes, in fact, as telecommunications carrier, we have the opportunity to be from the data storage, from the servers of the company or the administrations to the devices of the users. So the fact as far as we are a transnational network, transnational firm, we have the capacity to look on what are, technically speaking, not in the content, but technically speaking on the networks. And the fact is that we can analyze and try to identify malwares before they are attacking or entering the information system of our customers. So the fact is that we have the capacity, as I said, as a target, because a telecommunications operator is frequently targeted on cyber attacks. Why? Because it has an impact on all its customers and industries, and when we see them coming from states, coming from criminal gangs, obviously this is something which is quite common. So we had to invest on that question, and we say, okay, we can deliver this knowledge about cybersecurity to our customers, and because we need to have the trust in the capacity of the communications to be still available, even if the hackers are very creative, if they are changing methods, if, as you say, the user can do some mistakes or can download some files and he shouldn't know, but he did it or she did it. And then that's why we have to take in consideration this background. And obviously we have to invest and work with startups. Why? Because as a big company, we are able to cope with huge, massive volumes, but we need to have this capacity of startups to see things differently, or to dare, in a way, of organizing ideas and structures differently, saying, because I don't see, as you are, as a big one, I don't have the same point of view, I don't have the same way of considering problems and then solutions. And so that's why we need, it's mandatory to have this exchanges. Obviously, we have to learn about the language that we will talk together, because the agenda are not the same, the way of taking decisions are not the same. But I think that these two worlds has to mix, has to interact to each other, because obviously we can't consider that the way of coping with all these threats will be dealt only by transnational huge firms, huge companies. But the fact is that once we have the capacity to understand how it will help our ideas, exactly, for instance, as automotive, you can understand the use, consequences, and the fact that most of the players will invest on their knowledge about building the car and building what is the heart of the industry. And by adding a layer on cybersecurity, or layers on cybersecurity, we make it able to be efficient in that famous and so well-known digital transformation. Then they can concentrate on their own business, and then we can put some trust and the fact that they have the no doubt or few doubts about the fact that they will be able to continue their business, even if the threat is changing every day and is very aggressive continuously.
Thank you very much. I believe we talk and we raise many points on challenges and the next threats, but try to answer and refer to your specific industry, each one of you, and government, Roy. What is the largest threat and challenge in the horizon? Besides the human factor that we already said, and it's, well, you can elaborate on that already too, okay? Try to name some.
I'll try not to repeat stuff already said, but we need to be ready for the next disruptions, which will come in the following decades. Now, I'm surprised. Maybe I didn't heard it in my ears, but I'm surprised that the term quantum computing and AI and big data and all these nice buzzwords haven't showed up yet on the panel. Now, these are not the only buzzwords. Cybersecurity is disrupting a lot of fundamental social functions which the government is responsible for. Smart transportation, smart energy, the Internet of everything. Everyday lives of citizens are about to change, and the regulators and the government as an operational defender is not yet completely ready. It's very hard for traditional non-early adopter government ministries to digest and understand the significance of this change. It's unlike anything we've seen up until now. Now, these disruptions, along with the challenges posed by all those paradigmatic shifts in technology, quantum computing, quantum encryption, AI, and they compel us to work as a government together, what's something we are always bad at, and working together with the industry, as I said, working with global actors, because we don't have all the answers. We are not always responsible. A lot of the infrastructure of cyberspace is not located in Israel. It's located in many other nations, in Europe, in North America, and the Far East. We need to work with global actors. We need to work with our industry and our academia in order to be prepared. This is, a holistic approach is, it's almost a cliche, but in cybersecurity it's true, you can't help it. It touches every aspect of life. You need the regulators, the academia, the operational agencies, the military and civilian agencies need to work together, global partnerships, and that's it.
Thank you.
Hello, yeah. It's getting increasingly hard. I'm sorry for you guys. We're just picking everything before you. So I think that we as telco, we need to get away from just providing connectivity, and we need to provide security as part of our services. And I have to agree with Nicholas, as he said before, that I think that this proactive detection and recovery from threats is going to make the difference. And with all this amazing pace of innovation happening in everything from IoT to the cars to the cloud, we're going to see so many vulnerabilities also being opening, right? So my prediction is we're going to have security embedded everywhere, so just per default. And we need to be able to embed this security in a way that it doesn't disrupt by any means the business or the lives of the customers and the end consumers, which is a tremendous challenge that we need to be tackling, right? And another huge challenge that we have, all of us, but particularly I think the telcos, because of the nature and the volume of the data that we hold, is regulation, right? I think GDPR is going to change many ways of how we do things for the good, but also meaning a tremendous investment that we need to do to cope with that, right? I think that's super relevant. And if we think about all this transparent embeddability of security, then probably the next challenge that comes after that is how we make the customers aware of the need to pay for security, because probably the ROI or the tangible business value is not very clear before an incident happens. So how can you make them have the investment? How can we help the CISOs in the world to really justify the business value for the corporations? I was talking a few months ago with the CISO of a big Spanish city, and he was telling me, Miguel, it's going to take me like 20 million euros of investment to put all the cybersecurity of the city at the state-of-the-art level. And we don't have the money. So what do you think is going to happen? Do you think I'm going to get the 20 million, or they're just going to fire me when something happens, which is much cheaper, right? So probably at some point we need to be aware that many corporations or public institutions are not ready to make the investment that is needed. How can we help them with that? So, and my last point is, I touch on what you said about the open cooperation, right? I mean, nobody can do this alone. We may feel that Telefonica is very big, or that the national Israeli agency has a lot of knowledge, but if we don't cooperate among each other, we will not have the global reach, and we will not tackle innovation, which is happening now everywhere. So actually, Telefonica joined a cybersecurity alliance together with Etisalat, SoftBank, and Singtel, trying to do that, right? How we can have global reach, find entrepreneurs, but also find joint customers globally, so we can do a global serve, because the threats are going to be global no matter what.
So, in my opinion, and this is a very stressing problem for the world of automotive, is what happens when we use an AI-based quantum computing running on the big data in the cloud that allows the hackers to take the information from the cars and hack them.
All the passwords. All the passwords all together.
Of course. No, but seriously, and blockchain, this is completely crazy. From my perspective, at least in the world of automotive, cyber is still a buzzword. Because when we look at automotive, it's now becoming a software on wheels, but originally it wasn't a software on wheels. And for me, the main concern still today is that some, or even I say most of the car manufacturers are still reactive rather than proactive. And we can see that car manufacturers that were hacked 5 years ago already now has a team of about 50 cyber researchers and designers, while others that weren't hacked so far or didn't have a significant hack so far still have a team of about 3 to 5 cyber researchers and designers. And if we think about what I just said earlier, that a car is essentially going to have the same cyber solution for about 13 years, it means that whatever we are not deciding on today, it's a game over. Because we cannot retrofit cybersecurity in a smart way in vehicles. Otherwise, it means a recall of hundreds of millions of dollars. And whatever we put in the design today still have to win against hacker 12 years from today. Now, the only way that I know of in order to do that is by adopting the really base and core essence of cybersecurity. By the way, this is also the recommendation of NIST, which means that we need to be able to have prevention, detection, and responding mechanism from the base. What does it mean? It means that we have the highest level of security when we release the vehicle, so it's hardest to hack our vehicle versus our competitors. Nevertheless, every car manufacturer will be hacked. It's not a question of if, but only a question of when. And the next question is, how quick can we respond? And the other portion is understanding. Not only to understand that we were hacked, but how. So remotely, at the other side of the world, to know how exactly were we hacked. And in matter of hours, if maximum days, to be able to respond, so to make all of the fleet immune to this new threat that bypassed us. Unfortunately, today, no car manufacturers has these full capabilities, and I think they are still quite far from there. And this is the thing that most concerns me, and knowing that we have today the solutions already pretty much ready for all of them. So this is my main concern, being proactive from day one.
I think one of the biggest topics is data. And data, I think in cybersecurity, it's a risk and a huge opportunity. From the risk side, even traditional organizations are being more open, sharing information with clients, with other third parties. We're moving to the cloud. We have automotive, we have IoT. The data is all over. And I think GDPR, for many organizations, if they were looking on this correct, was a huge opportunity to try and understand which data they are holding, where are they keeping this data, and why they're keeping this data, and not just look on this as a regulation or something you need to do. And I think for many organizations, from what we've seen, they discover new data that now they understand they can use it to create new business or sell this data in a protected way. And I think from cybersecurity, first, we need to keep on this data. But I think we can try and use this data, as Ofer said, to predict, to respond, to discover threats in our networks, in the client networks. And I think we're not in the phase that we know how to use all the data that we have in the organization in order to do better cybersecurity. We're seeing more and more in Israel, more and more in startups, trying to understand what they can do with this data in order to discover new threats and to do some incident response process. For entrepreneur, it's one area that it's a huge opportunity for the next 2 years.
Thank you.
2 points, I think. Obviously, it's difficult to intervene at the end of this prestigious list of speakers. But first of all, the idea is I think it will be more and more intense when we see that we have attacks concerning precisely one individuals, and at the same time, massive attacks. We have to keep in mind that cybersecurity concerns very targeted individuals because they are leaders, because they are head of state, because they are CEOs, because they are very creative and they have some knowledge. But it's the same risk to have very massive, with a large number of files, than having very single attacks. That's just to keep that in mind. And second point is the question of the detection, because we have to be humble, modest, and we can't promise to say everything will be under security. So the fact of the detection is important. If we take an image of a starting of fire in a forest, if you are at the beginning of the fire, you just need 2-3 buckets of water to stop it. Obviously, if you don't get that information and you just see once the fire became huge and you need to have a lot of people involved, hired to cover the risk and to try to limit the impact, obviously we have to, as far as we said, a certain number of legislations forced companies to investigate about which are my data, which are the values. Obviously, it's not on behalf of security, it's on behalf of money. When you see the amount of the fine, it's because there is that fine in risk of loss of someone is stealing the information, that they say, okay, I can spend some money in investing on cybersecurity because the risk is I can put an amount, a price on the cyber risk. And the fact is that once we have that question of value of information, it will time to say, okay, you can't say I will end with the risk and the cyber risk, but I will have to limit the impact of it to be and to react. So that's why, for instance, with our friends from Telefonica, we do share informations, because when they see certain things on the networks, we do see certain things, and by sharing that information, we can prevent and say, okay, too bad you were under attack on part of your territory, but we can avoid, and then next time we will inform you, and then even if we are competitors in Spain, for instance, on the Spanish market, we do have the capacity to share. So it's a new way of organizing competition, business. We still are competitors, but there is a kind of common interest where companies have to share information. And so that's why this is a new way of thinking the business. And the fact is that the strategy of resiliency, the capacity to say, I can't avoid to be under attack, I have to limit the impact, detect it quite soon, quite early in the process, and back to business by a limited impact on what happened. So it must force entities to have a clear view about what the data they have, how they are organized, who are in charge. And so in that question, as I said, it's not a question of being worried and to see cybersecurity only as something to fight against criminals. It's something which is upgrading the level of the digital assets, and the fact that once you know what you have as information, who are the people in charge, who is able to read an information, to modify information, to destroy in case the information, but you have a clearest view about your organization. And when you are in a context where you have new players changing and contesting your business model, you have a clearest view to be stronger, because you know better what are your strengths, what are the lackness that you have. Obviously, you are well in a better position. So that's why don't see cybersecurity as only something which is to be close, to be against outside world. It's something which is a good tool to improve the quality of the information system and the people who are dealing with it.
Okay, we have 3 minutes, so I think we can take one question from the audience. Who is the one? No questions? Okay, yes.
I hope we can all agree that cyber is a new branch of warfare, yes? And now we have like private companies, I don't know, Celebrite opened the phone for FBI. You have checkpoints securing web for governments. You have UpDome, who is securing mobile phones for European Parliament. So does that mean that security and defense are going into the private hands, and how can you comment on that?
Government.
I missed the end of the last sentence. Can you repeat that? Well, okay. The easy question is yes. I think I'll use an example. You know, one thing we haven't talked about is the growing threat of using cyberspace to subvert democratic institutions and society as a whole. Now, while governments, we're not sure it's a cybersecurity issue, we're not sure it's a defense issue yet. We are struggling with the very definition of running influence campaign through cyber. What's exactly the definition of it? But we know one thing. Our room as policymaker to maneuver at the moment is very limited. We need technology. We need companies who control the flow of information to help us expand that room, the field of maneuver, okay? Without companies who hold the internet infrastructure, without their cooperation, without the utilization of anomaly detection techniques and other techniques which are only available through R&D efforts of the private sectors, we in the public sector remain quite powerless to mitigate this challenge effectively, okay? So that's just one example of why cybersecurity is a prime example, is a prime manifestation of an era in which the government doesn't hold a monopoly over violence, a monopoly over assets, and needs other stakeholders in order to meet the challenge. So, yes, the short.
Thank you, Roy. So thank you very, very much for being here. I would like, before we wrap up, to invite everyone to CyberTech Tel Aviv, which is taking place in January 28th to the 30th. And please, if you would like more information, you can come to me. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for the audience. Enjoy the rest of the day.